Hello, welcome to the podcast Ukrainian Studies at the University of Illinois. My name is Olga Khometa. I'm an assistant professor in Soviet and post-Soviet studies at the University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign, and it is my pleasure to introduce our guest speaker, Halyna Padalko. Halyna, good morning.
Hi, thanks for having me. All pleasure is mine. I'm really excited to be here.
Likewise, Dr. Padalko is a multidisciplinary researcher specializing in strategic communication, propaganda, disinformation, and AI-enabled information manipulation. She holds an MA in Global Governance from the University of Waterloo and a PhD in Computer Science from Kharkiv Aviation Institute, and is currently a Fulbright Fellow at MIT's Center for International Studies. She previously held a doctoral fellowship at the Center for International Governance Innovations in Canada. She also held an internship at the European Parliament and a fellowship with the NATO Stratcom Center of Excellence. And we look forward to learn from you about all this experience and what you've learned from it. So yesterday, we had a pleasure to hear your talk, AI for Disinformation, Threat or Remedy, here on campus at UIUC. And my questions, how did AI impact information manipulation and disinformation?
Thanks for having me again, and thank you for this organizing and hosting this talk yesterday. I really enjoyed talking to your people. So many questions. You ask, what did I learn? I'm constantly learning. This is not a destination, this is a journey, and especially with the development of AI and all these new technologies, every day we're learning something new about how AI is impacting a process of information manipulation and foreign information manipulation, disinformation, cognitive warfare. So this is pretty new field, and I have a presentation that I give sometimes in different universities for communities, and I literally update it every week because every week something is happening. And in the course that I'm teaching at MIT, every week we have like 10 minutes, 15 minutes at the very beginning to update people on what happened in this domain. So unfortunately, I will not have that privilege to teach this course next year with absolutely the same curriculum. It's going to be designed in a different way at all because this is so rapidly developing field. To sum up how AI is intersecting with disinformation and information manipulation now, I see three big spheres. First of all, AI for generative content, for text, for images, videos, AI voiceovers, etc. And malicious actors like Russia already using that a lot. Inside Russia, in Ukraine, very extensively, especially trying to leverage narrative to and accumulate people against government, trying to undermine efforts of conscription efforts and mobilization efforts. They're using that extensively. There's a Western audiences, especially last 2 years with that. We had electoral years, almost half of your population on Earth voted, and they were using extensively generative AI for different information operations for different causes. This is the first field. So AI for generative content. Second is it's very interesting and very, like, I would not say very new, but because it's very different what considered new in our field, because because everything precisely like developing super fast. But AI for LLM grooming. So basically, a new tendency what we see in our spheres that AI stop being just a tool that help or enhance information manipulation. It also became a battlefield for disinformation operation, because malicious actors, precisely like Russia and China, they are trying to infiltrate training data sets of LLMs to then get to your outputs. And with the widespread of LLMs, and like we do see that almost every service, if not now, but tomorrow, they will use LLM and will be connected to like biggest LLMs get into the system, get inside the box, and like infiltrate narratives inside. This is something like very perspective, and we do see after disclosure of information operation Portal Combat or Pravda, with this network of malicious sites that Russia created specifically for infiltrating training data sets. We do see that this works because we have a lot of evidence that prove that, like my colleagues who from different think tanks, from research organizations, they created the benchmark data sets trying to assess how susceptible are LLM models for all of that interventions. And in different cases, they show bias from like 18 to 20, 40% of pro-Russian bias for different queries that they were testing for LLMs. So this is huge. This is second sphere. And third sphere, how AI this is on a level of concept, but this is something that all of us are concerned, are AI swarms. So this is absolutely automated, like bot farms that are able to exist without basically human intervention, develop their stories, develop their intervention inside their communities, test how these or those narratives are successful, like do this A/B testing inside and develop. So this is something that people in our community are very much concerned about, because previously, if we can remember, these notorious internet research agencies, Prigozhin, run by Prigozhin, Trolli from Olgino, they were notoriously known for meddling into the U.S. election. They were the one who were behind the anti-vax operations here. Like they were basically trying to polarize U.S. society, leveraging topic of vaccination and COVID. So for them, it took like 100 people to run these troll farms, to write comments, to polarize U.S. public. Now it could be just one Ivan somewhere in St. Petersburg who sit down and basically creates this AI farm, AI swarms, as we call it. So we know about swarms, drone swarms. Yeah, this is basically term from cognitive, from kinetic warfare, right? So Russians basically sending bunch of drones in Ukraine to trying to overwhelm our system of interception, and that's what called drone swarms. Now we have AI swarms. This is like really, really interesting development. So I don't want to sound really scary, but unfortunately those are like three big area where AI possesses threat to the concept of truth, to democracy overall.
So, to clarify some conceptions that your talk was based on, and just to share the same vocabulary, what is LLM?
Yeah, so LLMs are large language models, deep learning advanced system that are used to basically aggregate and learn from big amount of data that are currently on the internet. And from what we've seen right now, like from a perspective of like innovation development, we do see that this is something that will be absolute need of people in the nearest future, because we see every services, like even yesterday we talked with your colleagues and they are currently talking about systems that's going to be used for like every university to kind of track, even like plan scheduling of the classes. So this is a natural development of innovation that we cannot skip. Apparently, AI and large language model as a part of AI technologies are dual usage. So it could be used for bad and like for warfare and like for information warfare, as we talked in the class and today. We are focusing on the cognitive aspect, like information warfare aspect. So this is not about technology itself. It's about how malicious actors are using existing technologies in a very creative way to reach their malicious goals. So very often we're talking about like advanced algorithms, compute infrastructure, but very often if you're talking about malicious actors like Russia and China, this is not about very edgy algorithms and deep learning methods. It's about something what already exists that they are leveraging and in a creative way to organize the information operation. For example, I talked yesterday about doppelganger operation, which is basically information operation that comprise out of hundreds of sites that are trying to mimic and like a believable copies of existing news outlets like Washington Post, New York Times, Le Monde, like if you're talking about Europeans. So the idea of the operation to create these believable copies, fill it with AI-generated articles that were used, like LLMs were used to create these AI-generated articles and deceive people basically with pro-Russian narratives that are there inside. So on a technical level, this is not really a quantum computing. So you basically get like some information, like real articles from Washington Post, put in the LLM saying like, could you please rewrite it from the perspective of Russia, Vladimir Putin, launch this network of sites, copy their design, and that's it. So in a nutshell, it's not that much about AI as about actors who are leveraging AI for their malicious purposes.
Thank you. This is very helpful. Now, your case study is Russia, disinformation related to Russo-Ukrainian war. Mm-hmm. So maybe you can illuminate us about the history of Russian information manipulation and narrative warfare that made its way to the current information warfare.
So we often talk about technologies as a main amplifier of disinformation, but the core is actually and always been the same. These are narrative warfare. So if we take a look into information operation organized by Bolsheviks or like Lenin times or Stalin times, all of them had the same core narratives. If we're talking especially like if we take regional look on Ukraine, for example, so narratives about Lenin creating Ukraine, something that right now is very extensively used by Putin, and basically he made a great patriotic war in USSR as a core of his propaganda and core of his gathering around this like victory. Narratives about brotherhood nations. This is something that we saw on the posters from 40s, 50s. Now we see the absolutely same narratives in the reports tracking main propaganda around Ukraine-Russia war. So it was always there. It just changes shape, change the scale, change the speed, plausibility. So yeah.
So what would be the goal of Russian informational warfare? Mm-hmm. What is the ultimate goal?
Mm-hmm. So there are several strategic goals of the information warfare, strategic communication, active measures, as they call it. One group of goals would be streamlined towards portraying Russia as the rough country, as a nuclear superpower. So that's something that helped a lot at the beginning of full-scale wars. It's why a lot of countries were hesitant to support Ukraine straightforward because of this image of Russia like nuclear superpower, don't play with Russian bear, all of that stuff. connecting to this forming Russia's image. Also, we have soft power tools and all these narratives about Russian ballet, Ruskaya dusha, and all of that stuff, trying to basically create a parallel image of Russia as a nice country with great culture, with fascinating poets, with the art, and without actual connection to all crimes that this country, as Russia, as the US, have been holding for decades. And the other group of goals connected towards meddling into Western democracies. So what do I mean by that? It's basically undermine trust in democratic institutions, in democracy itself, so discussion and polarization. So the goal is to create gaps in societies and basically push people to their extremes, so they are losing their societal cohesion, and it's much easier to polarize and basically intervene into these societies. And you basically losing a nation if your nation is fragmented and segmented into different marginal groups. So that's something that they have been doing for ages with operations as HIV. They were leveraging KKK and different groups inside US for a long time. Now they, in the digital age, they were, as I told you, they were using troll farms, or trolls from Olgino, to basically convince radicalize more anti-vax communities, and also people who were adamantly against these anti-vax communities. So they were not just working on one front, they were deliberately creating these gaps between different groups of society.
Great. So you were speaking about polarization of the society as perhaps the main trend that the disinformation warfare is designed to achieve. And the polarized society is much easier to manipulate and control.
Exactly.
When there is like atomized society, when there is distrust, when there is like lack of sensing that you belong, that you are understood.
Yeah, definitely. You don't have overarching strategic narrative that unite those people. And we can trace how relentlessly they are working in a Ukrainian context, and not just to polarize society and basically create these local clashes a lot between, and trying to find this cornerstone of the discussion, like trying to basically clash people who are who are internally displaced and locals, that are like something that they worked a lot to kind of create this, tensions between this community. But also in the Ukrainian context, if we go back to this topic, they are relentlessly working to undermine authority of our government and impose this idea that like our government is illegitimate, they are working against their population, they are corrupt, etc. So I do agree with you that this atomized, polarized society is very easy to manipulate in, but also it's very easy to manipulate the nation if the nation doesn't trust in their government.
Thank you. This is indeed illuminating. How good are we in detecting AI? Speaking of national security, and maybe you can discuss a few case studies, let's say the United States or Canada or Ukraine.
This is a conundrum, how good we are in detecting AI, because usually we overestimate in ourselves how good we are in detecting synthetic content, in detecting propaganda, and yeah, this is like really problematic, because if we actually take research that was conducted by some of my colleagues from cognitive science, and they actually submitted their work in end of 2023, beginning of 2024. They actually proved that we can recognize only 55 in average percent of synthetic content, if you're talking about audio, text, visual. generated material. But it was really 2 years ago when generative content was not that plausible, when we were actually able to detect. You definitely remember those times when we were like, oh yeah, this was ChatGPT generated because it was using this particular word, this particular structure, or like there was six or five, like six fingers when like we saw some generated videos, or like a face was detached from the body when we were talking about like AI generated video. So it was like really easier to recognize. Now the plausibility and the models, like productivity of models and plausibility of models are extensively growing. So I'm not sure if we can be, like, being honest, like if we can actually claim that 10% of what we can recognize as a AI generated content is actually AI generated content. So and on the technical side, it's also something that we cannot be sure about. So all the deductive mechanisms are also not 100% kind of sure that those pieces of information are AI generated or not.
Yes, but still there are some tools, and there are some, institutions developed like fact checkers.
Yeah.
How does AI help in disinformation and information manipulation?
Mm-hmm. So there are several areas where actually AI could be used for helping with tackling challenges that AI poses, and not just AI, just basically information manipulation poses to democracy. First of all, is to help with monitoring and analysis of disinformation. Coming back to Ukraine, a lot of my colleagues who work in the space of startups, they launched their companies, who worked, and survival is mother of innovation, and it's basically Russians war against Ukraine, and all the relentless cognitive operation that they are launching against Ukraine gave a space for new companies that are doing AI for strategic communication to be successful and to be developed in this domain. So what they are doing, they are first of all offering deep analysis of information ecosystem, of visibility to identify coordinated inauthentic behavior, troll farms, narrative traveling between platforms, general narrative analysis, topic modeling. So on a huge scale, this is like really big, and probably the most popular way of utilizing AI. So you basically build an evidence based on the information, on the huge data sets of information that you are able to scrape on the different platforms. And apparently any human being on Earth would not be able to read 2 million tweets on a day, but with AI we can actually analyze what is happening in the information ecosystem, and then build compelling evidence-based counter narrative and counter messaging. So this is the first one. Second is what I also learned from my colleagues who are doing AI and startups. They extensively using now AI to simulate information operation in information ecosystem. So basically how narratives are spread, which part of the ecosystem are vulnerable, how communities are reacting for this and that narratives, which also have implication for offensive and defensive warfare. Third implication, biggest implication I feel right now is AI to support counter messaging. So my colleagues from Open Minds, this is AI startup, they basically developed a system that can chase bot comments. So they have a database of bots and they track in their activities. And when those bots are posting particular message somewhere on Telegram, let's say, using clusterization method and like topic modeling. They try to understand what this message is about and immediately go after this comment and respond with a counter narrative. So this is like amazing because this save us time, and information operation time is a key. So you losing the time, you losing narrative warfare. So this is a three. We can also talk a little bit on like how it's used in the cognitive warfare with AI chatbots that could actually talk to people and convince them and try to work with their prejudice and with their biases. But this is additional. Look, a lot of not okay. Some segment of people from my sphere talk a lot about AI for reducing polarization, for example, in communities. I know Google works on a project where they actually organizing like polls in the communities where people are expressing their idea, how they see their city should be developed on the level of urban planning and some kind of governance decisions. And they designed AI chatbot that actually talked to those people. And after this experiment, after they gathered all the ideas, talked to locals, 84% of people reported that they feel like they are heard and their position are heard. So even if they don't agree with like other point of views, they still feel like polarization in the context of those particular community reduced significantly because of technology. So we can whine and say like, oh my gosh, AI was gonna destroy our future, our perception of truth. Yeah, all of that is true, but we also need to leverage everything what we have because it's the only one way to try to mitigate negative consequences of AI for information manipulation.
Great, thank you. This makes sense. So it's the experts on disinformation and narrative warfare seem to be well equipped to counter the narrative warfare. But what would be your advice for average people to counter the disinformation created for them by malicious actors? So what are the methods of building this informational hygiene that would help, regular people, regular folk like me, who is not an expert in disinformation, to protect myself from manipulative narratives?
First of all, you're not an ordinary person. You're a prof on specializing on Russia and Soviet Union and Ukraine. So you are very well equipped because you already know the instruments that Russia used for decades with that regard. But so a situation on actually ordinary people are not that good. You mentioned information hygiene, and that's something that we talked about with my colleagues extensively. So because basically your feed are designed for you, like Facebook, Instagram, or TikTok, if some people are on TikTok, is designed for you and extensively, not just by platforms and their desire to get more attention, because in the age of all this attention economy, everything they care about are your clicks, your attention, your engagement metrics, and I'll be honest, they are benefiting both from people and like entities and actors that are trying to exploit their platforms for malicious goals like information manipulation, like propaganda, like disinformation, as well as activities that are launched by people and groups who are trying to counter these narratives, because they are still launching and organizing engagement on the platform. So with that regard, your satellite's gonna be NGOs, definitely, and think tanks that are professionally analyzing this information. So I think if you are interested to learn more, definitely there are lots of cool resources like EU versus Disinfor, ISD, American Sunlight Project, NATO Center for Strategic Communication, and a lot of local initiatives that are actually organizing repositories, doing cool reports, doing creating observatory of disinformation where you can go and check. But if you don't have time for that and you're kind of busy, and I get it, you can just organize your media routine by comprising your media set, basically, from the media outlets and sources that you trust. I would suggest to add something from a opposite side of like political spectrum, and subscribe. And like I read news from my Gmail every day, so I don't go and like someone is not engineering news for me. I'm the one who choose what I'm reading, and I do want everyone to organize their information routine in their way. So you know your time, like every day at 7 a.m. you open your or either Gmail or like your browser, and you go and look into that particular site that you trust, because this is very insidious. You can think that this is Washington Post that you see on your Facebook feed, but that could be easily doppelganger site created by some FSB agent that you currently reading. And if you don't want to be deceived, pay a little bit of effort, do a little bit of effort, and organize your feed in a way that you will not allow you to be deceived.
Thank you. This is illuminating. How did you come to the topic of Russian propaganda? What was your incentive and your path to your career?
Honestly, I think it is the most interesting topic from a perspective of research, policy, and industry to be in right now. It is very tragic, but I don't see any signs that we're going to be living in a peaceful world as we used to live before 2020 or 2014. So we are entering the new Cold War, or I don't know how to frame it, like era when we're going to be encountering and facing a lot of hybrid threats. And big chunk of that's going to be cognitive warfare, a lot. What makes me sad that people don't really realize that being even here in very peaceful University of Illinois, we are actually in information warfare, because adversaries are launching it against us every minute. Perception of war and understanding of war is quite different, and still kind of in the frame of World War II, when you actually have kinetic warfare, you see bombs, you see drones, and that's what you consider like active warfare. But unfortunately, AI and conception of cognitive warfare blurred the lines, so we could be in peace but being at war, you know. So I just think that this is very fascinating topic to research, and honestly, I think of that 24/7, and I do care about Ukraine because it's a place where I grew up, where I was born, and like this is my homeland. And unfortunately, a lot of that intertwined with what is happening in Ukraine. Ukraine is basically on the forefront of all this, not just kinetic warfare tactics, but also information operation tactics, and everything what was tested in Ukraine is for sure going to be very soon deployed in the context of Western countries. So it's also a lot to learn from Ukraine. Ukraine basically tried to embed AI into system of security and strategic communication, leveraging it for startups that I mentioned, OpenAI, Mantis Analytic, Let's Data. Also, those are Ukrainian startups that are actually used by government internationally, from like in UK, in Europe, to help them to tackle disinformation threats. So on level of strategy, information manipulation is recognized as a strategic threat, as a issue of security, of national security, because it's been for a while there in this space. So a lot of NGOs are using AI to build this evidence-based reports, monitor information ecosystem, warn people about potential threats that they will gonna be encountering, doing some debunking, but also pre-banking, anticipating some upcoming threats that Russia gonna be like, and information operations that Russia's gonna be organizing in upcoming days. So this is a lot to learn from Ukraine, and I'm happy that Ukraine is very generous sharing this expertise still. Yeah.
Thank you. Anything else that you would like to share with our audiences and audiences worldwide about disinformation and how to protect yourself from it?
Yeah, this is more serious than anyone could think of. This actually has also very much offline impact. And it's not something very much separated in the sphere of online, intangible bots, comments. This has a lot of offline implication, with regard to sparkling violence and engineer offline processes. So you cannot just separate yourself saying like, I'm not part of that. You are part of that because you are part of information ecosystem, and this is your responsibility to protect yourself. Be curious and learn more. And if you don't learn, you allow other actors, especially foreign malicious actors, to manipulate you, and you basically betray your country in a way, because you're not contributing to development of democracy in your country, being reluctant in getting to know about these tactics, about what is happening. So this is responsibility of every one of us to understand that, be curious, and equip ourselves.
You also mentioned yesterday that in the future there will be perhaps developed courses like at every university to be taken as a mandatory course at every university that would equip students with skills and understanding of how disinformation works, how AI helps in shaping it, and how to counter it. So do you know of anyone developing such courses? Are you involved in such projects at MIT or elsewhere?
That would be my dream if every classroom and the secondary school and every auditorium in universities will have information literacy, media literacy, digital literacy, critical thinking as a key component. But unfortunately, it is not. So the first ever master's program for information management professionals was organized in Estonia by my friend Sim Kumpas, and this is the only one master's program that I know about so far. At MIT, together with my professor and friend Elizabeth Wood, we are teaching course on AI and propaganda, using Russia's war against Ukraine as a study case, basically teaching people about the tactics, technique, procedures, what Russia and other malicious actors are using in the sphere of information operation, and trying to elaborate how AI is used for information manipulation. We're going to be doing actually workshop super soon, developing Observatory of Russia's disinformation in Ukraine using Claude. So we're gonna be literally using AI against information manipulation. So that's what we are doing in our course, and I hope that this is something that will help our students to be well equipped and transfer this knowledge to other communities, to their workspaces. So I do believe in the power of education, because probably it is the only one fundamental force that will help us to tackle disinformation, like provide us with a long-term inoculation and building this resilience and resistance to disinformation for a future. Because other measures, as a technological measures, it's going to be like fight of AI with AI. Legislative measures going to be always behind development of innovation. And if we actually really want to invest long-term in democracy, we do need to develop those resilience on the level of communities, on the level of schools, universities, and all age groups.
Thank you. Thank you. That does sound important and exciting to work on. Well, thank you, Halyna. It was a great honor to have you here to share with us your expertise and give us some ideas for the future and some recommendations for protecting ourselves in this world of many misleading narratives and relative truths.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I do appreciate it. And, I think our talks is also part of building this resilience and efforts to build this resilience for at least community of university. And I do appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.